Welcome to the Staffing Playbook podcast, the podcast where we uncover the best kept secrets in staffing and recruiting and help you turn insights into action. Welcome to the Staffing Playbook podcast. I am recording from my cell phone today because I just can't get my audio equipment to work out. But I am excited about today's episode. We're going to be talking about how to become a more confident leader. I am joined here by my co-host, Genevieve Bourgeois. Genevieve, how are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you today, Stephen?
Fantastic. We have Ian McLeod from Grow Up Leadership, a regular on the program. Welcome back, Ian. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on. I always appreciate chopping it up, talking about leadership. So
yes, this is part of our leadership track. We have multiple episodes on different leadership topics, and we bring in Ian on these topics because of his expertise. And so this is going to be a fun topic. It's different from staffing today and HR, but leadership certainly plays into every type of business where you're in a leadership position. And so this is going to be fun.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, Ian, let's kick it off with a foundational question. How do you define confidence in leadership, and how is that different from arrogance?
Ooh. So I will say, I think a lot of folks from a leadership standpoint get confidence wrong. But confidence in general, if you're just having to define, I'll define it more from a psychology standpoint. It's more about self-efficacy, right? And using that, having that confidence has really been found to help you understand a situation and have control over that situation. So oftentimes that's what it's linked to, is the control over the situation. Arrogance, obviously, I mean, I think, there's a lot of different interpretations about how far you go with that, but it's basically somebody who just thinks they're better than somebody else or knows more. That's not what leadership is at all, I would say. It's certainly not a confident leader. You can actually run into a lot of trouble if you take that route. Simple enough. I mean, I can go deeper. I'll go deeper.
We're going to go deeper for sure. Yeah, because there is a lot of misplaced confidence out there.
Absolutely. I will say, so when asked what is one of the most important attributes of great leadership, I mean, I think people oftentimes talk about confidence as an essential kind of trait. People usually want to develop confidence, and I think, unfortunately, most of the times they get it wrong. It's not what they think. So, when trying to project confidence or thinking about how you project confidence, people are typically getting it wrong. Confidence as a leader, I would say, contrary to popular belief, is not that you have all the right answers or know exactly how to get the job done. Instead, it's that you ask the right questions, that you trust in your team, your peers, your leaders, your process, that you have a good, solid process and you trust in that and you feel confident in that process to acquire all the necessary information and resources to successfully deliver. And I would say that's really what confidence or a confident leader is.
I love that. And on top of that, it just invites others to have more confidence within the actions that they're taking. And it seems as though that would kind of like shut out arrogance. That's a nice, calm, assuring, just no ego approach.
Yeah. A lot of times, confidence, what you want to have in confidence is, as a leader, you're making decisions, right? Most of the time. And it's a decision-making process. Unfortunately, oftentimes leaders feel, or they act, or they project like they have to have all the answers, they know all the information, and they have to make all the decisions, or they're having to shoulder all the decision making. And the reality is, instead, asking questions, seeking out all the available information, necessary information, data, solutions to guide an informed decision is really what you want to be doing. Most leaders again, they feel that that decision-making process is completely on their shoulders, often based on, unfortunately, a very singular viewpoint or kind of limited information.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's interesting. A lot of new leaders, they get promoted into this leadership role. They want you to validate the decision of promoting them. And so what naturally happens is a new leader will just take it all on their shoulders, like you just mentioned. And they knew enough to get promoted. They should know enough to do their job effectively. And so what tends to happen is they don't raise their hand, they don't ask for help, they don't seek other people's perspectives and opinions on different decision making methods and or initiatives. And so they just tend to go, they think, they believe they're confident, they're leaning into that confidence, but really it's that arrogance. They don't want to ask for help, they want to validate the decision to be promoted, and so they move forward and they make a lot of mistakes in the process.
Yeah, I will. Sorry, you go ahead.
Oh, I was about to say, it sounds like it's a whole mindset thing because it's like, oh, here, I'm at this position now. I've worked to get here. But it's that false confidence that I think really kind of does trickle down into becoming arrogance. But also, that's one of those things of like, that's how you burn yourself out if you're taking on
Hmm.
everything by having just that stubborn mindset.
Right. I think unfortunately most folks, when they are promoted into a leadership role, they believe that they now have to prove that they've earned this or that they are a leader, and they demand or should receive respect. Leadership is mostly about, and I will say, from doing it for a long time, leadership is about more about how you make others feel, not about how you're projecting yourself and making them think about you. It's how did you make them feel in that situation. So are you making them feel heard, validated, listened to, valued? Those kind of things. Are you in, again, kind of inviting them into this conversation and making them feel like valuable resources of this team? You've hopefully hired some smart people. I mean, I think unfortunately a lot of people don't utilize them. And again, where confidence comes in, it's more about you are confident and you trust in your process to get you the answers and the information to make informed decisions, not so much about, again, that you have all the answers yourself.
That's right. It's like, yeah, a new leader. This is what a new leader says to himself when he just hears what you shared, Ian. Okay, enough talking about me. Let's talk about you and how you feel about me.
Well, and it's more about how, are you asking that team, that group, for their opinions, their thoughts on that, on this. You're trying to receive information. You're trying to make informed decisions, right? So you need all this information. There, there's and I've probably talked about him multiple times on this podcast before, but there's a world famous psychologist named Daniel Kahneman, and his colleague, him and Amos Tversky. They studied and researched, for decades, decision making processes and various biases that impact the process. Most people make decisions based on their past experiences and then the information that is literally right in front of them. They would refer to this as what you see is all there is. So the reality is, that you're looking at this, but there's all this other substantial other information that's not in your direct line of sight. That's out on the sides, the top, the bottom. You get the idea, right? There's all this other information. Unfortunately, there's a whole host of biases and that impact our decision making process: illusion of validity, hindsight bias, prospect theory, confirmation bias, all these different things. And what that culminates is what they refer to as the overconfidence effect or overconfidence bias. And this is actually a real problem, especially for those with power and authority, because you possess all the decision making authority. You then believe so strongly in your ability to make the right decision, and you often neglect any alternative information or ideas, or just even pause to think or ponder anything different. So this unfortunately is a huge problem. And instead, again, I think where confidence can really come in is where instead you take a step back. Hey, what are the problems we're experiencing? Give me more information. Tell me more about that. What do you think we should do? Because you already have your ideas, your thoughts on that. You don't need to project them out to your team and convince them that you have the best idea. Instead, you need to gather that information to help make a more informed decision that oftentimes may be a consensus with others as well. It's a lot of
Yeah.
information dropping on you, but that's kind of the idea. Again, it's more about the process that you're taking and less about that you have all the answers.
Yeah, I want to lean into that, Ian, for a minute with this, overconfidence bias. You look at leaders' decision-making styles, right? You typically have, a few different decision-making styles. You've got the autocratic decision-making style. This is the overconfident leader, my way or the highway. Then you have a collaborative decision-making style where you bring everyone in the room. You've hired all these people on your team for a reason. They all have their own unique skill sets, and they all should kind of work into balancing out the skill sets needed into the team. And so you take a collaborative approach on the challenge that you're tackling. Then you have a democratic approach where, as a leader, you're letting that team can kind of make the decision, let them work it out themselves. And maybe there's a team leader that's assigned, or collectively they've all decided, okay, we're going with this idea. You give them complete authority to make that decision versus collaborative. As a leader, you have that final say, and there's no one right decision-making style. It's situational. But when we're talking about the subject of confidence, ideally you're going to find yourself in that collaborative decision-making style where you bring everyone together, and you, just like you mentioned at the beginning of this, you have control of the situation, right? Not trying to control the narrative, but control the situation, gather all the facts, bring it together, and be confident in the decision that you're making. More importantly, your team has confidence in you as a leader in making that final judgment call to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the autocratic kind of leader, they tend to appear as a confident, kind of all-knowing, very, I have the answers. Let's get this done. Do what I say, kind of approach. And that again can appear as someone who is confident, and they may be. One of the things that's very compelling about a narcissist, right? And so this is in psychology kind of research. Narcissists tend to be, one of the things that's attractive about them is they do project some level of self-confidence, oftentimes, even though underneath they might actually be very, unconfident about themselves. They project that level of self-confidence, and that's actually can be quite attractive in a way. So confidence, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. You should be confident, but again, more confident in your process and your team and the resources that you have available, or the resources that you know how to find, and less confident in you have all the answers. And I think that's the difference.
You mentioned a narcissist, which is almost a personality trait that,
Sure.
it's almost like you're born with it. I don't know if that's factual or not, but can someone learn to be a confident? I know this might be a silly question, but in your perspective, can you learn to be a confident leader, or is this a personality trait like narcissism that you were born with?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I don't know how much narcissism is something you're born with, or it's something that develops over, an early age, kind of child development kind of stage. But obviously there are people who are extroverts and introverts, and people who are in between. I think somebody who is a bit more outgoing and has that kind of natural personality where they really enjoy talking to others and get energy from other people in the room, and engaging with them. I think that they might have an easier time, and that might be more of a natural thing for them to project that level of confidence. I will say some of those people, though, the trick, though, is the reason why they come off very confident is because they are demonstrating an interest in other people, right? They are oftentimes just asking other people questions. What do you think? What that does sound like a challenge. What would you do? What should we do? And you're interested and you want to hear that other person and those other people provide that. It's not so much about you sharing all your ideas and opinions. I can keep going if you want.
Oh, no, I'm just, like, listening because I saw something about the difference between, narcissism and confidence and how people do confuse them, and
Right.
it's about the way how people are treated around them, and so it makes me go and think of a quote that I love. "Confidence is earned through action, which is
Mhm.
empowering to know it if it can be developed."
Mm.
So, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think sorry, I'm scratching my head there. The the thing with confidence again is it is something that you can develop. It is something that again you're interested, and I think this is goes into we've talked about this probably all in you know other podcasts and other conversations about leadership, but you are focused on a higher purpose, a purpose beyond you, right? You know, an arrogant or a narcissistic person is focused on their own gain, their own purpose. What you want is again a leader who is making somebody feel something, and oftentimes that might be inspiration, right? You're inspiring others because you have this higher purpose. You're connecting those dots between aligning what they're the work that they're doing to this again higher mission, higher vision, higher purpose. Those kind of things can all be inspiring, and as long as you are kind of communicating this north star goal, this thing that we're trying to accomplish, I think that that's really where you set yourself apart. And those again are actionable things. So one of the things I would say, a takeaway is not only ask good questions, but make sure you understand what you're trying to achieve. Like, what are your goals? What are the desired outcomes that you're wanting to achieve when you're going to into any conversation, whether it be a one-on-one or a team meeting, or you're doing a big town hall meeting with hundreds of people. What are you trying to get out of that? And that can help guide that conversation. And again, get good at asking questions.
Yeah. No, I like that. Let's lean into this some more with some practical tips for someone that can take to build confidence. So you just mentioned one, and that's having it, especially in a one-on-one meeting or team meeting, you're setting some goals, kind of some mileposts, something with the end in mind, desired outcome. What are some other practical steps that someone can take to build build confidence within themselves and their team as a leader?
Yeah, so I think again, understanding what your goal is, and oftentimes again, it's not your goal shouldn't be if your goal is to persuade someone that you have the right answers or all the information, that's a wrong place to start, because you're if that's what you're trying to achieve, again, that's not leadership, and that's really not, I mean, let's be honest, like that's really not a good goal to have, right? That shouldn't be your goal. Instead, your goal should be to figure out, okay, what is the challenge, what are the obstacles, what is the problem, what are we trying to achieve, and how do we get there, right? Is really what you're trying to figure out. And oftentimes there might be 7 different ways you can get there, and you need to get this information from them. Now, sometimes it might be that that individual, then they need to work towards whatever that is to get there. So again, it's using some form of coaching where you are trying to gather information. So I think a lot of folks, and I'm not demonstrating this well right now because I'm just sitting here talking, but really a lot of folks, unfortunately, they as a leader, they go into a team meeting or a one-on-one or a large group department meeting, and they feel like they need to just project all this information and talk and talk and talk. Instead, what I would suggest is you already know that information. You need to now ask good questions. What are those questions? And you need to figure those out ahead of time. I will say, too, the other thing I would suggest in just building confidence, oftentimes, is just be prepared. Spend some time in preparation. I see this too often where a lot of times people confuse this idea that confidence is winging it, right? That you're just going to go
Mhm.
in and wing it, and because you're such a confident leader and you're such a confident speaker, and you have not prepared at all. And unfortunately, at some point it might look great for the first 1 or 2 times, but people will see through your BS relatively quickly. And when you just are continually do that, it just demonstrates that you have really no dedication, no real interest in achieving these goals. You're not really invested in this conversation or this meeting or what have you.
Yeah, I think it's a learning curve for a lot of people here. You have to have a mindset as a leader to always be learning. And the thing about leadership traits like confidence is these are traits. This is not something you were born with, right? And so that's the good news here is you can learn how to be confident in the right way without being arrogant, right? Or arrogant. These are traits that you can learn and develop over time. And as a leader, you should be focused on your leadership traits, on how to improve them every day. Because at the end of the day, you want your team to have confidence in you. You want to have confidence in them, so you have that cohesion to accomplish your goals.
Yeah.
And if I may add, learning, it's just in learning and educating yourself. It's such a powerful tool to be able to go and reframe even your own personal mindset. And it
Yeah.
helps you to grow and just not shrink in the long run because the more information you take in and the more you learn from asking, here we're going back step by step, play by play,
Right.
to ask good questions. And you know what that means? You need to be a good listener. All right. Actually know what your goals and your outcomes are that you're looking for, that you're expecting to achieve. Right. And then have that good conversation and just continue and then mold it. Did I miss anything?
I think it's perfect. And I will say, I think taking that attitude or that mindset to how you operate with work and with the folks that you support in general, you want to create an environment where learning is what everyone involved is doing, right? We are trying to achieve these goals and we're trying to learn how to get there. We understand some things of how to get there, but people are always going to be growing and developing. I think when you create that mindset and that again, that environment of learning, it becomes much easier to provide, whether it be uh, any kind of feedback or have these difficult conversations or share information with others. People are much more accepting, and I think that starts oftentimes with in front of your team or to your team acknowledging your own challenges, your own learning opportunities, your own missed opportunities or mistakes that you've made, and just acknowledging those and saying that you are learning from those. And oftentimes that's where, again, asking those good questions and validating that information that people are sharing is really going to help. Where if somebody's sharing feedback or problems with their job or concerns, thanking them for that. And sometimes you may have to even apologize, or I'm sorry that this was your experience. We appreciate you providing this feedback, and this is how we're going to incorporate that going forward, or tell me more about that so we can learn from that situation. I think, again, creating that learning environment where everyone is embracing it is key. And I will say, this is that vulnerability that it sounds counterintuitive, but that level of vulnerability demonstrates such a high level of confidence, right? Like when you see a leader who is willing to say that, I made a mistake and now I'm learning from this, I feel way more confident about that person,
Mhm.
and that person is projecting confidence versus the person who's arguing, with me about this situation. I have an example I can share. There was
Please.
uh, so this was a large town hall meeting, and so my boss's boss was kind of leading this meeting. This is hundreds of staff at a large nonprofit organization. Um, and during this meeting, we as leaders, we were as different senior leaders, we were sharing various departmental information, that kind of thing. But it's also an open invitation for people to share, ask questions, that kind of thing. And of course, some staff were sharing some concerns, some real true concerns they had about various things. And this one leader, who again, great leader, but they oftentimes could get themselves caught in this back and forth, and you would see it where they're at a high level and they're kind of arguing back and forth or giving excuses, and kind of being defensive about the feedback that was being given. And I get part of it. They're in this meeting. There's all these other leaders there. That person's boss was there, and so there's this back and forth, and unfortunately, other staff, these are frontline staff that started jumping in, kind of, supporting the feedback that was being given, and there was this defensiveness. The the leader's leader, so this is kind of like my boss's boss's boss, jumped in and basically, and stopped the back and forth, and instead acknowledged to the frontline staff, just simply said, it sounds like you're really passionate and you really care about our constituents. I hear that this is really concerning to you and a real problem, and I appreciate you sharing this feedback. And I think it's very helpful for us to make some improvements going forward.
Yep.
Just simply saying that and acknowledging that, it just deflated the situation. It made it a much more, we're on the same team and we are working together. And it made that, all they did was just make that person feel validated. And it made such a huge difference. So those kind of things, those statements where you again are validating and you really make that person feel valued, has a huge impact on the confidence that people have in you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Sounds
great
like a
case
great
study
leader.
there. Yeah.
It was-
Yeah. That's the thing about confidence. It's almost like we should flip the script here. It's not more, more or less how I can be a more confident leader. It's, how can I get my team to be confident in my leadership? That's really what we're asking here. And so you don't have to be a know-it-all. Yes, in a crisis, you look to your leader to just have the answer, right? Make the decision that's going to help everybody move forward. There's certainly times like that where there's not much collaboration and not much dialogue. It's like we're in a crisis. We're looking to you, leader, to pull us out of it. And so, but even in those situations where they're high pressure, there's uncertainty. To have a leader that goes, I validate what you're saying, your concerns that you're sharing. I get it. I'm hearing you. If they matter to you, they matter to me. And you don't have to then just shut them down and say, "Here's our decision moving forward." It's just let them voice their concern or their interests and talk about it openly. Take that collaborative approach, and then you take all that feedback and go, "Here's what we're going to do moving forward." And that gives you the confidence from your team, right? They're more confident in you because you're hearing them out, you validate them, and even if you don't make the decision in their favor, at least they've been heard.
Absolutely.
I know we've only gone through like 2 questions here. It feels like really good topic. So, what do you see leaders do unintentionally to undermine their own confidence?
I think one of the challenges that with confidence, and it's understandable why people might, in a sense, undermine their confidence. Again, they think that they need to project something. You hear this, a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome, that kind of thing, where they are really trying to project something that they're not. Um, I I would encourage people to instead to be honest. I don't think that there's an expectation, or there shouldn't be an expectation, because again, to the earlier point, I mean, you want to create an environment of learning and being accepting of where we are and where we want to go. So acknowledging that, maybe you are a new leader or you don't feel confident in this certain area. But there's 2 keys that, for any kind of thing to build confidence is knowledge and experience, right? Well, you can acquire knowledge. You have to live through experience, right? So there's
That's
some
right.
of that, but and there's just no other way around it. I mean, you can learn every aspect about how to drive a car, but until you start driving a car on the road, there's nothing like it, right? So the first step is just acquiring knowledge. But I will say again, being honest and saying that, this is something new to me, or I'm a new leader, or this specific aspect of this role is new to me. And you lean on people who are your experts in the room if you have them, if you have people who have experience and their knowledge. And if not, again, you can acquire that knowledge. It's just being honest, and then you have, again, that process where you understand where you need to go. And if you don't know where to go, then you need to ask. Find somebody who is an expert, who has experience. How did you figure this out? Where do I go? I will say, there most likely there any situation, any problem that you are faced with as a leader, there's most likely someone else that has gone through that thing, whatever it is. And whether it be in your organization or outside your organization, excuse me, there's probably somebody uh, who is smarter and more experienced, who's invested the time and effort to figure that out. And you just need to go find out whatever that information is and then apply it to your situation. So be smart about it. I think, unfortunately, and don't worry about the ego part. Drop your ego and figure out the process to get there.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me go and think about, that golden rule, or one of the many golden rules, right? Honesty is the best policy. So being honest with yourself and being honest with your team, like, hey, you know what? I'm so sorry to bother you. I have a couple of questions about this. Can you help me out? Just allowing yourself to be vulnerable. I think that's actually a very key trait to being confident, because you allow yourself to be vulnerable. You're comfortable with yourself to be vulnerable. I love that. And then on top of that, just with the knowledge, like you said, anyone can go out there and educate themselves on something, but when it comes to the experience, getting behind the wheel of a car, it's completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's so true. If you think about new leaders here that are watching, even experienced leaders that maybe feel that imposter syndrome, or leaders that are just trying to do better, to be better. When it comes to constant confidence, you have to be clear, you have to be consistent, you have to be calm. And so, Ian, when you look at people you've mentored, people that have mentored you in your career, I certainly have a few mentors that I lean on to this day throughout my career. Looking at that mentorship, that feedback loop, what what role can a mentor play, even if it's your boss, in helping you grow your confidence? What are some tips for those leaders that are trying to instill confidence in their leaders that they're trying to grow?
Yeah, I think, you know, again, creating an environment, kind of like we talked about, and this levels up, right? So you as a leader should be creating an environment for your team where learning is the expectation, the norm, and that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're learning from those mistakes. And that you should be, kind of to the larger point, you should be learning. We all should be learning. We all should be developing. We all should be growing. So I think if you are in a mentor situation and you are trying to help somebody develop their confidence, one, obviously people need positive feedback, and I think that that's always something that can be helpful. Not just giving this constructive feedback, or focusing on all the things that they did wrong, but instead focus on the opportunities to improve, or the things that they did right. But again, creating an environment or a relationship where people feel confident in, again, the process, right? So I feel confident even if I don't have the answer, the knowledge, the experience. I feel confident that I can go to this person and they might give me some direction. Maybe they give me the answer, or maybe they give me some direction somewhere else. But I feel confident in that ability to again ask questions and find the answers that I need, instead of feeling like I have to somehow magically have all the answers. I think there's this misperception, or at least I will say, anybody who's been promoted to a leadership role can tell you that, you're promoted. There's no magic key. There's no, treasure chest or book of secrets that all of a sudden is bestowed upon you, and now you have all the answers, right?
What? You just rocked my world there, Ian.
It doesn't exist,
We
or at
need
least
one of
I've never
those.
seen. Everybody put it. I mean, you'd think like that's what's there, and oftentimes, or that's what you're looking for, and it's not. It's that, again, you build a good process. I have an example. This is a setback, but an example of kind of this process as well. So I worked for nearly 20 years for a large nonprofit organization, cancer related organization, American Cancer Society, and the center that I worked at was a large center, and a lot of the staff, what they did was they would deliver complex cancer information, right? So very
Mhm.
complex cancer information. They would get questions from patients, family, that kind of thing. And we helped that or through a training, we had this very thorough document kind of library of various documents on different cancers and different treatments and all these different things related to that. Right. So we had this great resource for the information. There was no way, and it was impossible for someone to know all the backwards and forwards, and we did not train them to learn everything. Instead, what we trained them on was a process on how to find the information. So how to ask the right questions, how to make sure you understood the questions, and how to find that information. So instead, you don't need to know the ins and outs or the backwards and forwards of rhabdomyosarcoma or gestational trophoblastic disease. You don't need to know that, right? That wasn't the expectation. It was that if you got someone asking about rhabdomyosarcoma, that you could clarify those questions and you had a clear understanding of where this was within the document and how to deliver that information. And if there was still questions beyond what you could accurately and completely deliver, then you had another resource. We actually had oncology nurses we could refer questions up to or escalate
Wow.
questions to. So there was a process, and so it was not about that you knew all the answers. It was that you knew how to use the process to
Mhm.
to be successful. And I think that again is probably the biggest takeaway I would try to give to leaders is feel confident, build a process, whatever that process is for you and your team, and feel confident in that process, and not that you have to have all the answers. That's where I'm dropping that mic a little bit.
That wasn't mic drop.
It was.
Yeah.
But I could keep going forever. But I will say too, some of the other things there, when you're thinking about yourself, and I dropped the mic and then I picked it right back up like an idiot. I should have just walked away. But I will say, again, there's actually evidence oftentimes to show that people at some level, right, that what you want to demonstrate is more competence, right? That you have some level of knowledge of whatever that is, a process that you understand how to find the information and how to solve these problems. And oftentimes that's, do you understand what you're trying to achieve and what information you need to get, and getting the full picture to do that. But I will say, again, there's going to be mistakes you're going to make. There's going to be missed opportunities. There's going to be those things. There's actually a psychological phenomenon called the pratfall effect, where people perceived as highly competent become more likable when they make small, kind of more harmless mistakes.
Mhm.
So it what it suggests is that imperfections can actually enhance a person's attractiveness. So you not being like, you don't need to be perfect. And matter of fact, you being somewhat imperfect actually makes you more likable by your team. So embrace those things, those mistakes, those missteps. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as, like we talked about, that it's a learning opportunity for yourself and for your team.
Yeah, those mistakes help people see you as more of an authentic leader, which in turn gives them more confidence in you and your leadership, that you're leading them in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that is such a powerful thought for a leader to actually go and implement. Is you don't have to know it all. In fact, you shouldn't. If the day you think you know it all is the day you've lost. You want to lean into your team, into their expertise, and with your knowledge and experiences, bring that together and be confident in the next decision that you're going to make. And also, I'm a big fan. I've done this throughout my career with my team. It's like all the data points to this is what we need to do next, and we've exhausted all of our others, resources. This seems to make the most sense. But what I will tell you is the moment that it doesn't make sense, when it stops, we are going right back to the drawing board, and we're going to map out what worked and what didn't, and we're going to reiterate, and we're going to try something else. And so I am confident this is the right decision today, unless the data tells us otherwise tomorrow or the next day. And so let's all get comfortable and moving forward. Let's take some big swings every once in a while. And if it doesn't work, at least we tried, and now we know it doesn't work, and let's move on to the next. But there's a real sense of paralysis as a leader to not have that right answer, and so you just don't take that swing, and so you end up taking the safer route or no route at all. And so again, your team is going to have more confidence in you when you own that mistake and say, "This was the decision we made, and we got it wrong. I got it wrong. I own that. Let's try it again."
Yeah.
Embrace your mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah. You'll again, it's called the pratfall effect, and you will actually look more attractive to your team, and people will probably like you more because, again, everybody internally, that we all know we're not perfect, and so it's a bit difficult when you see somebody who is, again, trying to project this confidence and everything they do is perfect and everything they do is right. It's hard to be around that person sometimes. I find myself a bit intimidated or not enjoying myself when I'm around people who project constant confidence. I will say the most confident people, again, that I've seen are actually those people who are very honest about their mistakes or their learning opportunities.
Yeah, it's that relatability too. That's so important to have confidence in a leader. Well, Ian, we've covered a lot of ground here in this short time. This has been a lot of fun. I'd say that the theme for me, the takeaway for me today is just, again, confidence is not loud. It's not displayed loud. It is clear. It is consistent. It is calm, but it's also authentic. And again, as a leader, it's not about displaying confidence, to the definition, but having your team see you as that confident leader, believing in you and the decisions that you're making, and that really is a long process of being a true leader, where you take that mostly collaborative approach with your team, own the mistakes, laugh at it, be authentic. That's really where the winning strategy for me, just in this episode today.
Yeah, I think to your point, trust in build a process, trust in your process and your team and the resources that you have either available, or knowing that there's probably a resource out there that will have the answer, and that you're asking the right questions. And again, confidence is don't feel like you need to have all the answers, because that's not what real confidence, I would say, is. Again, confident in your process and your team and the ability to ask the right questions and knowing where you want to actually go, I think is another highly important thing. And then, whatever you can do for a situation, try to prepare, because you'll feel more confident and in control.
Yeah.
Now, I do have a quick little follow-up. Just this can be a yes or a no, but question. Okay, so do you have to feel ready to act confident? Or is it one of those things when you just start showing up with intention, asking the good questions, being honest, and confidence will follow?
I think you answered it beautifully. It's more about um, the confidence will follow. I think that people shouldn't be so concerned about projecting confidence, and more that you are doing the right work and involving your team and asking the right questions, and that confidence will follow. To your point, I think that that's the preferred way, and that's where it's going to be more genuine. And because otherwise, man, it will be exhausting if you are always trying to show up with all the answers and project all this confidence, and everything. You're not going to last long, and your team's not going to enjoy, the the process or interacting with you, in comparison. So, you want to make those meetings with them as enjoyable. Again, oftentimes leadership is about how you make other people feel, about themselves. And so asking those great questions and getting them involved and making them feel valued, as a part of the team, doing those steps and focusing on that, and they'll see you as a confident leader. That's what I would assume.
Well said, Ian. This has been such a fun conversation. We love having Ian McLeod on the podcast. If you guys are new to the podcast or first time watching Ian, go check him out. You can find him on LinkedIn, Ian McLeod. He's got his YouTube channel, Grow Up Leadership. That's GRO dash up leadership, right? What's your website, Ian? Is it growup.com, growupleadership.com?
It's GRO-leaders-up.com. So growleadersup.com.
Grow Leaders Up. Oh, I just caught that one. That's good. Well, I hope this, if you're listening in, share this with a colleague, share it with some of your leaders. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a comment down below, and tag the Staffing Playbook, tag Ian McLeod, Grow Up Leadership. John V, any other thoughts before we wrap it up?
I don't know. Well, I guess until next time, lead well, staff smart, and stay confident.
Ooh, okay. I like that.
Peace.
We'll end on that. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, John V. We'll see you next Friday.
Bye.